So starting طبعا أول واحد is it's a very easy question. We basically substitute وعندنا absolute value. So we're going to substitute a 90 over there. في absolute, one of the very important things to remember, and we don't change what's inside the absolute. We change the result of the absolute that would always come out as a positive answer. So مش بنغير الماينس تبقى بلس، احنا بنغير بعد ما نحسب what's inside. If it's negative تطلع positive. If it was positive تطلع positive as well. So كده كده من الأول أنا عارف إن أكيد it's not this و it's not this because the absolute is never negative and it's C. تاني واحدة the length of a rectangle is 12 feet. So أول ما بشوف أنا بقف أهو عند full stops دايما، أول ما بشوف حاجة كده بعمل درافت كده صغير عشان أبقى متخيل أكتر. أنا put إن ال length ده ب 12 which means that the other one is 12 as well. The width of the rectangle is half the length. I'll stop here now. Half the length, so half times the 12, which means that this one is 6. What is the parameter of the rectangle? If I need to find the parameter, I know that the parameter is the sum of the outer sides كلهم, which is basically 6, and this one is 6 as well. So 2 times 12 plus 2 times 6, which would be 24 plus 12, 36. One of the easy ones as well. Any questions so far? Okay, moving on to number 3. Number 3, whenever we have a negative sign قبل bracket, we have to distribute the negative sign inside, which will leave the first bracket as it is, but the second bracket will change its signs. بدل positive 2n هتبقى negative 2n، وبدل positive 2m هتبقى negative 5m هتبقى negative 5m. Now, if there are any like terms, I'll add them. So I'll put lines under the things that are alike. 9 minus 5, that's 4m, negative 4n minus 2n, that's negative 6n. You look at the choices and it's choice A. Which of the following numbers has the greatest value? Now 0.3 and then there's a dash. This dash represents, or it means, whatever under this dash will be repeated unlimited number of times. Which means that 0.3 is the same as 0.33333 unlimited number of times. So definitely this has to be the biggest among all of them. When you look at the rest, they're big, but they're not as close as this one. This one is the biggest, closer to 1. That's how you think about it. Are we good? At the grocery store, Jo Ellen received $1.6 when she returned her cans, glass bottles, and plastic bottles. Jo Ellen received 0.05 for each can. So I'll put 0.05 times the number of cans, plus 0.1 for each glass, so 0.1 times G, which is the number of glass, plus 0.05 for each plastic bottle, so I'll put 0.05 P. All of those, she received for all of those $1.6. So the idea of reading a word problem or translating it equation is one of the very important things. It makes things way easier خلاص. بقينا بنfollow steps if possible. Let's read the rest. She knew she had returned 6 cans, so the C is 6. كده ال C given 0.05 plus 8 glass bottles, so 0.1 ومكان ال G I'll substitute 8 and I'm left with the P as unknown. كل ده equals 1.6. How many plastic bottles did she return? So I need to know the P بكام. On a calculator بقى, you'll add all of those up على calculator. That's 1.1. And then I'll move it to the other side by subtraction. So I'll have 0.05p equals to 0.5, and then I'll move this to the other side and p will be equals to 10. When I move the 0.05 to the other side, it goes by division. I think it's important بس to learn this skill. بس بصراحة في الكويستشن ده كان ممكن يتعمل من غيرها عادي. بس it's important to learn the skill of changing الكلام into an equation لأنه بعد كده I'm no longer thinking. Number 6. Pablo recorded the noon temperature in degrees Celsius on 4 consecutive days as part of a science project. On the first day, the noon temperature was -4 degrees. On the fourth day, the noon temperature was 12 degrees. What was the change in the noon temperature from the first day to the fourth day? كلمة change basically يعني difference. وكلمة difference يعني minus. So if I need to know the change between two things, I basically need to subtract them from each other. The first day, it started at -4. And then the last day, it reached 12. So I'll put the new temperature that I've reached minus the beginning of or the first temperature that I've started with. And apparently I have 16 degrees change that happened. 16 degrees Celsius that occurred so far. Why did I start with old minus the new minus the old? Because I need the change that happened من أكيد هيبقى change means إن أنا ابتديت منين وخلصت فين. If I started at -4 degrees and it ended at +12, it means that the temperature have increased, so it needs to be positive. It needs to be +16, not -16 anyway. Are we clear about this ولا مش قوي؟ كنا حلينا سؤال قبل كده برضو بيتكلم عن موضوع التمبريتشر ده وكان حاطط فيها حتة كده بيقول إن let this sign denote an increase in the temperature وسؤال و this sign denote a decrease in the temperature وبرضو he slept someone يعني مش عارف slept and the temperature was whatsoever and then he woke up at a different temperature. What's the change in temperature? We do the same thing. The new temperature that I've reached minus the one that I've started with. Sienna will be paid $75 plus 25% of her total weekly sales for the hours she's scheduled to work next week. I'll stop here. This is a full stop, so I'll stop here. And I'll try to, وفي information that seems to be important that I've passed, so I'll try to translate it to math. She'll be paid $75 كده كده. Yes. Plus, so I'll put plus 25% of something يعني times that thing. The percentage has to be من حاجة. The percentage has to be multiplied by something. It's 25% of what? Of her total weekly sales. So I'll put 25% of X. And remember, in the X represents the weekly total weekly sales. That's what I've decided to represent the total weekly sales with. بعد كده هو غير الكلام ده قال لي let W بقى represent the total weekly sales. So هشيل X بس احط مكانها ده. For the next week, which of the following expressions خلاص done. بس في بقى حتة إنه لما تبص على الchoices مفيش percentages. So how can I remove the percentage sign? في أي وقت عايز remove the percentage sign, I basically divide the number by 100. So that will be changed to 75 plus 0.25 W. Now it's clear that it's A. Does that make sense, everyone? The sequence ده اللي أنا مشيت بيه الquestion ده, even though this could be done faster, مش محتاج نبص له بالديتيلز دي, بس the same way applies on even harder, longer questions. So that's why we need to practice الطريقة دي في التفكير. Which of the following augmented matrices represents the system of linear equations below? Now, الماتريسيز are used اللي هي الماتريكس اللي هم rows كده أو table فيها أرقام كتير, بس هي ما بتبقاش table قوي, بس شكل كأنها table فيها rows و columns of numbers. Basically, we can use the matrices to solve everything in math. It's another way of calculating math other than algebra. So it solves those algebraic forms of questions اللي هو system of equations, وبنعمله using حاجة اسمها Cramer's rule, وساعات بنعمله برول تاني اسمه inverse rule. Cramer's rule أكتر حاجة used. المهم انه بس عشان نعرف نسيت ات اب بطريقه ماتريكس عشان نحلها it's important to understand انه الايكويشنز دي بتبقى دايما مكتوبه xy equals رقم xy equals رقم. انا بكتب بس الكوفيشنتس، يعني بكتب ال 3 وال 5 دول لازم يكونوا في نفس الرو لان هم بتوع نفس الايكويشن، وتحت بكتب الرو التاني اللي هو ال 2 والنيجاتيف 1. بره دول كلهم يعني بعد الماتريكس دي هيبقى في ماتريكس تانية صغيرة فيها الانسرز دول الاثنين بنفس الترتيب فوق بعض علشان I use them later on to solve using the grammar rule. So he just wants you to set it up in the correct way. And when you look at that, it seems to be إنه G is exactly the same as this one. Does that make sense, everyone? اسأل يا حبيبي على Yes, yeah. Yes. أنا كنت مستغرب ليه في negative 1 عشان شفت ال1. عشان دي negative بس. Perfect. طيب. So far ما جاش ولا question actually بيسأل على ال details of how to use the Cramer's rule. هو بس بيسأل على how to set it up. عشان كده I didn't discuss how it's solved using the Cramer's rule. The second question بيقول لي g of x is equals to whatsoever and then he's asking me to find g of negative 3. g of anything or f of بطيخ بشيل الاكس واحط البطيخ. g of negative 3 اشيل الاكس واحط negative 3. 2 bracket negative 3 to the power of 2 minus 3 bracket negative 3 plus 4. We will put this whole thing on a calculator. طول ما هي ما فيهاش x's it's okay. It should become 18 plus 9 27 plus 4 31. برضه very easy question بصراحة. Moving on to number 10, what is the measure of angle ACB, which is the one that has this question mark right there. We need to remember إنه أي line في الدنيا عليه حاجة اسمها straight angle. This is what we call a straight angle. الانجل دي كلها على بعضها is 180 degrees. I have already البورت اللي بره ده ال 132. أنا عايز أعرف الحتة بقى الريد دي بكام. That's easy. I can only do 180 minus 132 and it would get me 48 degrees. This is the measure of this red part region that I've highlighted. And the same idea happens to the other angle هنا. كل the green part is supposed to be 180. I should subtract منه the white part, which is 103, and that would leave me with 77 as the degree measure of this green shaded part. Now, when you look at the triangle, this triangle here, you can tell I have already the measures of two angles inside that triangle. I know that this one is 48 as we mentioned, and I know that this one is 77. So I can get the third one by doing 180 minus 48 and minus 77. That's 55 degrees. J. One of the easy, straightforward برضو questions ما فيهوش حاجة صعبة قوي. It uses the basics of الجيومتري. بس في حاجة مهمة قوي. This does not apply عليها خالص ال parallel lines theory. يعني ما اقدرش اقول مثلا ان الانجل دي ب 48 فتبقى دي كمان 48. ده غلط. لانه he did not mention in any way ان ال DC وال AB are parallel to each other. Moving on to number 11. It says Marietta purchased a car that had a purchase price of 10,400, which included all other costs and tax. I'll put here 10,400 for the price of the full car. She paid $2,000 as a down payment, so there's a down payment of $2,000, and then got a loan for the rest of the purchase price. Marietta paid off the loan by making 48 payments of 225 each. 48 payments times, because they're paid 48 times, $225 each. This would get me the overall installments that she paid. And over here, I know already in 2000 is what we call a down payment. The total of all her payments, including the down payment, was how much more So the question of how much more, whenever I see the word or the question how much more is this than that, I understand على طول ان انا هعمل حاجتين minus بعض. How much more, how much less, how much bigger, how much smaller. كل دول معناهم ان انا هعمل حاجتين minus بعض. ايه هما الحاجتين؟ First is the total of all her payments. دي أول حاجة including the down payment. Then الحاجة التانية هي إيه؟ The car purchase price. So اللي قبل ال than minus اللي بعد ال than. That's how we know هعمل A minus A. That's than means minus. So I'll get first of all the total of all her payments. The total of all her payments is 48, as we said, multiplied by the 225, which is $10,800. That's the installments, including the down payment. So I'll add to 10,800 a down payment of 2,000, which will give me 12,800 in total. ده كده the first part اللي هو the total of all her payments including the down payment. I should take this number and then put minus what the car purchase price. What's the car purchase price? It's 10,400. You subtract those from each other and you get a difference of 2,400. That's B. That's the how much bigger or more did she pay using the installments or the loan rather than paying the purchase price. Any questions here? 12. The dimensions of the rectangle shown below are given in inches. Which of the following expressions gives the area? So I saw the word area for a shape. I need to remember that the area of anything in the whole world is base times height. We just call them different names through different shapes. So this shape right here has clearly this as base and this as height. I'll just need to multiply the base by the height to get the area. So I'll put them in brackets and I'll start multiplying them. Make sure you distribute 2x times x, that's 2x squared. 2x times 2, that's 4x. Negative 1 times x, that's negative x. And negative 1 times 2, that's negative 2. If there are any like terms, you'll just have to add them up. So I'll leave the 2x power 2 as it is. The 4x minus the x, though, will turn to become 3x. And the negative 2 will go down as it is. You look for that choice, and it's clearly J. برضو any issues there? The population of a particular town is modeled by this equation. One of the very important things to do in any one of those word problems with a mathematical equation inside is to understand what does every letter in that expression represent and what is this thing used to figure out. It says the population of a particular town is modeled by this equation. So first of all, I understand that this is used to get the population of any town. And then where T is the number of years after January 1st, 2011. So T is years but after Jan 1st, 2011. Based on the model, which of the following numbers is closest to the population of the town on January 1st, 2013? So from January 1st, 2011 to January 1st, 2013, how many years have passed? Just need to subtract them. And clearly 2 years have passed. That means that this is the value of T, because T is the number of years after 2011. So all what I need to do now is to substitute this 2 into the equation to find the population, because they already told me that this is how you find the population of any particular or of this particular town. So I just put 120,000 multiplied by 1.1 to the power of 2 now.
This was one of the easiest ones.
That's interesting. So many people actually get confused in that, but I'll tell you why. For you, ya Osama, it seemed easy because of the English language. Now, most of the people actually have, would have an issue here because of how they get a bit confused in the English language. They forget that the T means the number of years after so and so. They think the T is the years itself, not the difference in years. So well done, Osama. Now let's check 14. 14, it says the phrases below represent three types of measurements as functions of time. The height of an object falling toward the ground, the height of a plant growing at a constant rate, the distance a car travels while increasing its velocity. So let's think about it. The height of an object falling toward the ground, the height in this case would be decreasing. It would be going down. Because as I'm getting closer to, or the object is getting closer to the ground, the distance, the height of that object is decreasing until it hits the ground. So it needs to be a decreasing function. The height of a plant growing at a constant rate, it needs to be an increasing function. It needs to be small and then growing. The distance a car travels while increasing its velocity, that's also something that is increasing. That's a very important thing to highlight in the difference between the second, and the third one. Even though both of them are increasing, the first one is increasing at a constant rate. The second one is increasing the velocity, yani it's increasing at a different rate every time. Why does this matter? If something is increasing at a constant rate, the graph of it is a line. That's what the linear functions represent. It's an increase at a constant rate. It's increasing, then it would go up. Decreasing would be going down. But because this one is increasing, I know it's a line and it's going up. Which means that the second choice goes for, I think, A. So I'll put here A next to number 2. The distance a car travels while increasing its velocity, as we said, it's still increasing. So from left to right, it should be going up, which tells me that then C has to be the other one, and then 1 is definitely B, which is the only one that's decreasing. It started at a specific height and then it's going down. Let's read the steps. What do they want in the question? They need me to put them correctly, and as we did up there. So A is number 2, B is number 1, and C is number 3. Look for that order, 2, 1, 3. So 2, 1, 3 is G. Easy صح؟ ولا مش قوي؟ Sorry. مش easy. ماشي.
Surprisingly, it was easy to read.
That's awesome. 5 points are labeled on a parabola. Which of the following lines has the slope of least value? So one of the important things to understand about the slopes, basically, is that if this is an xy axis and there's a line that goes this way, for example, this has a lower slope value than this line here, which is more more steep. In other ways, as they're getting to become more vertical, this means they're becoming higher in value when it comes to the slope specifically. So let's try and check how can we use this to solve this question. AB is this to look like this somehow, and that's an increasing, a very high sloped line, possibly or probably, because it's very steep and it's almost becoming vertical. AE seems to be a bit lower than AB, so كده I'll remove A out of the options entirely because I need the least value. So it's definitely not AB because AE is lower. BC maybe common to AE, so I'm not sure. So which means then that in this very specific case of BC, I will need to actually calculate the slope. So how do I calculate the slope of BC? I'll just do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's 31 minus 51 over 0.5 minus 1, and put this on a calculator and it should get me the answer. Get it always as a decimal to make sure you can compare between them. That answer is 40. Now let's check CD. CD here seems to be, honestly, for my opinion, برضو I can't tell by looking at it كده. So that in this case, I honestly think I'll calculate the slope. 63 minus 51 over 1 minus 1.5. Sorry, 1.5 minus 1. You see, I just wanted إن أنا أريح في حتة من الsteps إن أنا أحسب part without thinking قوي, and then the other part without calculations كمان قوي, and then the rest I'll try to calculate if it seems to be harder. So 24 now seems to be smaller. خلاص I removed AE and I removed BC. I've checked CD so far, so it's either CD or DE. So أنا بالعين كده DE seems to be the lowest anyway. So it's DE. If you even calculated it, you'll find that it's true because 67 minus 63 over 2 minus 1.5 would get you 8, and 8 seems to be the lowest so far. برضو easy بس long.
It was pretty short for me. I just went for DE because it was obviously the smallest on the graph.
Because it was the smallest, not the distance, the smallest when it comes to steepness, صح?
Oh,
The distance doesn't matter in this case. The steepness is what matters more. Okay, because if
so
the same,
if it were like, instead of being where it is, if it were like entirely on like that hump, it would still be
the lowest, because in this case it would be the line between them would be even more horizontal. That's the lowest. But if I give you, for example, another point C and then or B, for example, with, and let's say C is here, this, in this case, even though the distance is very short between them, it doesn't mean that the slope is low. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's why I need to make sure of this. Jamal earned scores of 70, 75, 85, and 94 points on the first 4 history projects and has one more project to complete. What is the minimum score Jamal needs to earn on the 5th project so that the mean of his scores on all 5 projects is at least 2 points more than the mean of the score he earned on the first 4 projects? Let's split this into parts لأن it seems to have one big, very long, big sentence اللي هي من أول what. That's a very big one. So first of all, I'll write those. Apparently they had four scores so far of 70, 75, 85, and then 94. What is the minimum score Jamal needs to find on the 5th? So apparently there's a 5th one that I don't know yet. You see how I'm setting things up? This is not for me to explain to you. This is for me to think about how to solve the course. I need the mean of all his 5 projects, يعني all of those plus each other divided by 5, because that's what the mean means. I need that to be at least, يعني bigger than or equals to what? To 2 points more. So something plus 2, because 2 points more means plus 2. More than what? Than the mean of the score he earned on the first 4 projects. So I'll get the mean that he earned in the first 4 projects. So mean of the 4 projects. Let's get that. How do I do this? I'll add them all up, divided by their number, which are 4 now, because they're just 4 tests. So 70 plus 75 plus 85 plus 94 divided by 4. That's 81. This is the current average of the 4 projects. So I'll put here 81. 81 plus 2 will make it 83. And I'll add 70 plus 75 plus 85 plus 94. That's 324 plus, I don't know the 5th, so I'll put X. وهودي ال 5 دي كمان الناحية التانية بالتايمز. So هعمل 83 هنا multiplied by 5. Do you understand what's happening ولا مش قوي؟
أنا فاهم.
Okay, I'll move the 324 to the other side. I'm sorry?
I understand.
Perfect. So then X should be bigger than or equals to 91. So anything above 91 or equals to 91 would get them a score that's 2 points more than the mean of the first 4 projects. And he's asking for what's the minimum score, so that's why I picked the 91 and I did not pick the 96, even though it would get me an average that's 2 points more than the previous. 17. In the figure below, of all of the small circles are equal in area. The area of the rectangle ABCD is 1 square unit. Which of the following expressions represents the area in square units of the shaded region? Generally, when I talk about the shaded region questions, I always tell you to get the area of the big shape minus the area of the white shape. But because this is a different scenario where they're tiny little boxes and parts of them is shaded, so it's like a part from total. That's exactly the definition of fractions, actually. So the fraction of anything is basically wanted over the total, اللي أنا عايزه over the total, or part from the total. When you look at the shaded part, first of all, let's look at this. This is a rectangle, seems to be. And when you look at the choices, you'll find that there are 2 fractions multiplied, which seems to be very similar to the idea of an area where the area is equals to length times width. So I'm thinking I need to get the length of the shaded region and the width of the shaded region and multiply them. How to do so? What's the length of the shaded region? It's the longer side. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes shaded out of 10 in general. All of those are 10 boxes. While the width has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes shaded out of 8. And that's how you get the area. E. Does this make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
What is the median of the list of numbers below? So the median is basically the middle number. That's one of the important things to remember about the middle number, or the median يعني, is that it needs to be ordered من الصغير للكبير أو من الكبير للصغير. So I'll order them up using those. So 3, 5, 6, 7. But the 5 apparently is repeated twice, so I'll go back and I'll put the 5 because it's 3 times, and then the 6, 7, 9, 11, and then 12. I've ordered them right away. So because there are very few numbers, I can do the shortest way of getting the median, which is crossing one from here, one from there, one from here, one from there, and so on, until you get to the middle number, which is clearly 6. خلاص, that's the mean. Is there another way to calculate the median? Yes. We can put the number of terms divided by 2. يعني 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are 9 numbers divided by 2, which will give me 4.5. Because it's something 0.5, I'll approximate it to the bigger. So it would be 5. 5 is not the median. This is the 5th number. The 5th number is the median. So here's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and now the 5th is the median, which is 6. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this method here gets me the position of the median, مكانه فين. But the method of crossing things out gets me just the value itself, as long as they're few in number. So if there are 200 numbers, how would you do so? 19. Clearly somehow a probability question. It says, what is the probability? So probability, I'll put the rule. It's wanted over total right away. What is the probability of what? That a randomly selected chip from this batch of 100 is, so the wanted is what again? Is type 1 and manufactured by company B. So how many are in type 1? This entire row goes for type 1. Manufactured in company B, then this column goes for company B, which makes 30 to be this wanted part. 30 هم دول اللي type 1 وكمان manufactured by company B. over the total, and they already told me this is a batch of 100, so it's 30 over 100. You look at the choices, it's A. Are we good? Is this easy?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Number 20. Number 20. Carpenters use the term pitch to describe the slope of a roof. For example, a roof with a pitch of 1/4 means the roof has 1 foot of vertical rise. So the rise, that's the rise basically, and 4 feet of run. So the figure below shows a 13-foot long roof with 5 feet مش عارف ايه, he needs x. That's a Pythagoras theorem question clearly, so just put the hypotenuse power 2 minus the other side power 2 under the root. And if you remember the special triangles, you'll be able to get it quickly. So that's 12. Now what is the pitch of this roof? I'll do rise over run, 5 over 12, and that would be the pitch of the roof. Any questions?
No.
21. Given that x is bigger than, is less than or equals to 2, x plus y is bigger than or equals to 4, what is the least value that y can have? So because they said that x is less than or equals to 2, I'll pick the biggest possible value for x. The biggest thing for x is to become 2. So I'll put x with 2. 2 plus y is bigger than or equals to 4, and I'll move this 2 to the other side, which will get me y bigger than or equals 4 minus 2, which is 2. So what is the least possible value for y? The minimum it could be is 2. Needs to be bigger than or equals to 2, so that's the least. But a very easy question, honestly. 22. As shown, A, B, C, D are collinear, which means they're on the same line. That's the word collinear, what the word collinear means. Given that AC is equals to BD, so I'll just highlight those. You see, I'll highlight them this way. AC is equals to BD, so I'll highlight this one on the other direction here. And they're both equals to 12, so that's 12 and that's 12. And then BC is equals to 3, so this tiny little piece is 3. What is AD? So I need to know this whole side. So it's clear now because of this way of highlighted things that the 3 is part of the 12. It's part of this. It starts here and it ends here. So if I needed to find the length of AB, which is this part, I'll do 12 minus 3, and that would get me 9. Now, because I know the AB, the one that I highlighted now, and I know from B up until D, so if I need from A to D entirely, I'll just have to add the 9 and the 12. So 9 plus 12 will get me 21. J is the correct answer. Are we good?
Yes.
Keanu bought a new laptop computer and paid a discounted price that was 20% less than $1,000. Than $1,000, less than $1,000 list price. Okay. So 20% less than 1,000 يعني 80% of the 1,000. When I decrease something by 20%, it means that I'm actually going to pay باقي البرسنتج اللي هو 80%, which will be equivalent to $800. He also paid tax on the laptop equal to 6% of the discount price. So this is the discount price اللي هو 800. He'll get 6% of that. So 6% times 800. And that's $48. So what is the total amount Keanu paid for the laptop computer? He paid 800 and add to that $48. So he paid $848 in total. C. Now I'll start to move a bit faster, or if there's anything stop me. In Middletown, Main Street and Market Street are parallel to each other, so on, the angles are given. He wants me to find what's the measure of the angle formed at the southeast corner of Main Street and Patrick Street. Southeast corner, so it's southeast of Patrick and Main. So we're talking about this angle. Because this side is parallel to that one, and because this line cuts them both, it's called a transversal. Those two angles اللي جوه added to each other should be equals to 180. So if I just do 180 minus the 76, it would be 104 degrees, and that is the measure of the angle that they're looking for. One of the tricks about this question is to make sure that you are able to actually figure out what's the southeast angle. Of the 900 students enrolled at Sierra Elementary School, 45% lived south of Highway. Of the students who lived south of Highway, so I'll stop now, 900, I'll get 45% of those. These are 405. Those are the people who already live south of Highway R. Of the students who, the students live south of Highway R, 20% do not ride the school bus. So I'll get in those 20%. 81, those 81 do not ride the bus. How many students who live south of Kaza ride the bus? So I'll deduct from the 405, the 81, and I'll get 324 students دول اللي actually ride the bus. One more way. I want you to see it but in a different best way. The 900 is considered now the 100% of something. If 40% or 45% live somewhere, and then out of, so I can split them كده this way, 45% here, and the remaining of 100, which is 55%, is what's left. Out of those 45%, there's another branch that went out that says 20% do not use the bus. So the remaining is 80%. Now, if I'd like to know the remaining is 80% of what, I'll have to multiply 80% times 45% times the 900. So if you do 80% times 45% times 900, it will get you to the same answer, 320. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The branches thing is important for later on questions. Which of the following equations represents a line that passes through the point 2 and -3 and has a slope of -half? كده because they said the slope of -half, I'll cross out F, I'll cross out J, and I'll cross out K. I'm only left with a G and H. I'll try one of the points. I'll try the point into one of the equations, and if it is true, it's the answer. If it's not true, it's the other one, without even trying. -1/2 times 2 is -1. -1 minus 2 is negative. So yes, it is true because this y is -3. خلاص, it is G. The entire graph of the relationship كذا is shown. One of those are, what's the domain? So the word domain means the x values. When you look at each one of those points, this point has a domain of 1, and this point also has an x value of 1. So I have 1 in the domain. This one has 2, this one has 3, and then there's no 5, 4, there's no 5, this one has 6. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 6. C. Domain is very easy. In this question, it's very easy. 28. On Friday night, the Morrison family set up camp in the Ocala National Forest. On Saturday morning, they hiked to a wilderness area 3 miles due north. So they might due north, 3 up, and then 4 miles due east to their camp. So they went right 4 miles. The elevation of the wilderness area is the same as the elevation of the campsite. So they used 0.1 mile. What's the straight line distance? So they need this distance. If you are actually memorize the special triangles, if you know what are the special triangles, the most repeated numbers, 3, 4, 5 is one of them. If you don't, so definitely it's 5. If you don't remember them, it's still a Pythagoras theorem, so you can just do 3 squared plus 4 squared under the root, and it will get you to the same answer. 29. What positive number when divided by its reciprocal has a result of 4 over 25? يعني ايه reciprocal? Reciprocal of AB, the reciprocal of it is the same number flipped, B over A. And that's exactly what we're going to use to solve this question. We'll start with a number, a positive number. So let's say it's, for example, x. When it's divided by, so divided, by its reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of x? It's 1 over x. So divide, I don't know how to divide fractions. Instead, we know how to multiply and flip the second fraction. So instead of 1 over x, it will become x to the x over 1, which is x. Now x times x will become x to the power of 2. I need this to be equals to 4 over 25. So how do I find the x? I'll put the power 2 to the other side as a square root. So the square root of 4 over 25 would get me 2 over 5 as the answer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Number 30, it says the base of an escalator store is everything that they talked about is clearly written on the figure itself. They need me to find this angle, and they want to know how to find this angle, basically. They don't want me to calculate it, they just want to know how. So this is برضو a right triangle. Because it's an unknown and we're trying to link angles and sides, we'll think of sine, cosine, and tan. So what has this side, which is considered the opposite, and this side, which is considered the hypotenuse? It's definitely the sine. So I'll say that sine, the angle that I don't know, is supposed to be equals to the opposite, which is 10, over the hypotenuse, which is 26. Now, if I'm trying to find x, which is the angle, I should move sine to the other side and use shift sine, which is sine to the power of -1 of 10 over 26. When you look at the choices, it's F, and that's it. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Perfect, I'm sorry it took that long.